Direct from the best damn sports bar on Martin Street in Penticton, this is Coach's Corner, presented by Underwriters Insurance. It's time for your weekly fill of Vees conversation and BCHL news and notes with members of the Vees organization, fans, and the local media. Now let's get to the hockey talk with head coach and GM of the Vees, Fred Harbinson, and your host, Ryan Pinder.
Welcome to Coach's Corner, live from the best damn sports bar on Martin Street. This is episode number 16. We're joined by the head coach and general manager of the Penticton Vees. It's all brought to you by Underwriters Insurance. And on this week's show, we tackle a 4-game winning streak for the Vees so that they ride into the final weekend of the regular season. We'll talk about the playoff race, the chances of the Vees earning a bye, finishing second, we're finishing third. And finally, we'll have a heap of questions answered by the coach. Some emailed in, some handed to us here from our live studio audience. My name is Ryan Pinder, alongside the head coach and general manager of the Penticton Vees, Fred Harbinson. How are you?
Doing well.
It's funny how much a week can change things. We were sitting here last Thursday talking about a loss in Vernon and feeling good coming out of it. Yet, I thought after your fourth win in a row last night against Westside, there certainly was room to be better, no?
Yeah, I mean, no question. I thought we were pretty sloppy. Obviously, had a real poor second period and made a lot of mental errors. And I think a lot of it just has to do with the product of being a long season, 58 games in, and I think our guys showed a little mental fatigue. Hence why we took today off from practice.
So you take today off, you don't skate. We don't see that on Thursdays normally, but the playoffs are a week away. That's probably front of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we got 2 games this weekend, but the number one thing is being prepared for next Thursday, and no matter who we play. The mistakes we were making last night were kind of beginning of the season mistakes, which would tell me that I don't think we just forgot how to play overnight. So I just we started talking about it as a staff last night and figured that there must be some tired minds, and maybe a day off is better than pushing them through a practice.
Let's go back to last weekend, because you have played a lot of hockey. 4 games since we sat here a week ago. 3 wins in the Caribou's never easy. You did that in 48 hours. Walk us through that trip and getting some guys back from suspension and injury, losing another.
Yeah, both places are tough places to play because they're little smaller rinks, and there's a lot of funny bounces that take place when you're up in those buildings. And so, we were real happy. There was moments where we played some of our best hockey in the last month, and there was other moments where we struggled. And you got to give credit to the teams that we played against. Obviously, the final game on the trip, it was huge, getting out to a big start, getting a great start there, and Quinnell pushed back, and you see it with every team in our league this year. There's not a lot of give up, and there's a lot of push in most of the teams that we're playing against this year.
Yeah, and you'll see both those teams again this coming weekend. We'll chat about that in a bit. What about last night? You did get a win, but certainly you got some help from your special teams. 3 power play goals, the first shorthanded goal in eons, and a big one for Curtis Loic. How did you see it from a coaching perspective?
Like I said, I thought we kind of got away from the game plan in the second period, and we had some players that were kind of going outside their comfort zone, and when you start doing that, you start becoming a very poor hockey player, and it filters throughout the lineup. And I think that's kind of what we saw in the second period, and it was epitomized by the final, giving up a goal with basically a second to go on a play that should have never took place. And the positive side was that our third period we bounced back and held them to 2 grade A chances the whole period, not a lot of shots. And even the first period we gave up 1 grade A opportunity. It was the second period was pretty dreadful, and that's what we talked about today, where we can't have everyone's entitled to mistakes, everyone's entitled to be a little off, but you can't go from one extreme to the other in 20 minutes.
Fair enough. What about the hit at the end of the game? Tom Crocious on Mark McMillan. Crocious had lost his stick. McMillan, with 18 seconds left, has the puck in the corner. Somewhat vulnerable for sure. It was ended up ruling a 5-minute penalty for a blow to the head. Did you think it was the right call? And what went through your mind when you saw that happen?
Well, first it was the delayed penalty, right? So, which at the time, I'll admit, I kind of missed that, as it should have been an automatic goal, because it was whenever you have a partial break like that on an empty net and there's a penalty call, it's an automatic goal. So that should have been called right there on the spot. But anyway, instead it went to the delayed penalty, goes to the corner, and to me, I mean, it looked to me like Crocious just all he wanted to do was put a big hit on him, and he was in a vulnerable spot. It's just, that's the type of the type of hits that we want to take out. And I think if the rules would be different in our league, as far as the fighting rules, I don't think we would have seen that hit from a kid like Crocious late in the game, where if he knew that he would have to dance with somebody, I just don't think you would see it.
Interesting, and we do have a question later on in our third segment regarding the fighting rule and how that maybe has changed the way you've seen games played. What about Prince George and Quesnel, who you get this weekend? They're very different at home than they are away. They've combined for, well, 5 wins on the road all season. Quesnel's got 2, Prince George has got 3. Why the stark contrast there?
Well, they're at the bottom of our standings, and I think if you look at everybody's, it's not, everybody has a pretty darn good home record. It's hard to win on the road in our league, and in junior hockey and in any level of hockey, it's hard to win on the road. And so when you're talking about 2 teams that have been kind of close to the bottom of the standings for almost the whole year, I mean, it's no shock that they struggle more so away from their home confines. But I think when we played PG there this last weekend, and that's the team that we faced first, I could definitely see there was more of a structure to their game, and I think Dave's done a good job there, and kind of putting a little bit of structure to what they're doing instead of running around trying to just be physical. I think they're still physical, but I think at the same time, he's having them play within a system.
We'll take a break and return. On the other side, a look at the final weekend of the regular season, and what are the Vees' chances of getting the bye, second place? We'll assess that in a moment. This is Coach's Corner from the Best Damn Sports Bar on Martin Street, brought to you by Underwriters Insurance.
Here's a look at the upcoming games for your Penticton Vees. Home or away, you can catch all the Vees games on Easy Rock AM 800 in Penticton or online at myeasyrock.com. Join us at 5:30 at the Best Damn Sports Bar for the next edition of Coach's Corner, presented by Underwriters Insurance.
Welcome back to the Best Damn Sports Bar on Martin Street. It is Coach's Corner every Thursday until next week, where we've got a special Tuesday edition, as the playoffs will be beginning next Thursday. We'll talk about that in a moment. First off, a thank you to Advanced Audio Microphones for providing the beautiful mic we get to use here on set. And Coach, let's start off with injuries. Last week it was more desperate than the situation is now, but you're missing a pretty steady defender in Paul Bezo.
Yeah, Paul has an upper body injury that we just don't want to take any chances with right now. If probably a week from now you get in the playoffs, he probably would have played this weekend. But I think we're gonna take the cautious route with him, get through this weekend. He skated a little bit today and took some shots, and we'll kind of see where it goes the rest of the week next week. But we're hopeful to see him back in Thursday.
As for the rest of the crew, anything to worry about? I know I had some people ask me, is Mark McMillan all right after that hit that he took late last night? Any concern there?
No, you know what? Everybody's good. I mean, everybody's 100% ready to go, and nothing out of the ordinary, the usual bumps and bruises. But Bezo, we need to get back in there, no question. I mean, you saw last night. I think he calms a lot back on the back end. The last month has been outstanding and eats a lot of minutes. So once we get him back in, our depth will definitely be a plus for us.
What can we expect in terms of a lineup you're going to field this weekend? I guess there's 2 schools of thought. One would be maybe get some veterans some rest before the playoffs. The second would be push and see how high you can finish. You still mathematically can get the bye. Have you made up your mind how you approach the weekend?
We've got a pretty good feeling on how we're going to play tomorrow night, what the lineup is going to be, and we're going to go with a little different look as far as how we're running our lines. But we gave them today off to try to get some rest instead of tomorrow, and at the same time we don't want to go limping into the playoffs playing poorly. We want to try to play well before next week, and so I think it's important for us, no matter where the standings finish. It's all about how we play tomorrow night, and once we get through tomorrow, then we'll reevaluate and kind of make some decisions for Saturday.
Do you get the sense that it's where you finish is not in your hands, in the sense that if you run the table, you still might finish third, but if you run the table, you give yourself a shot at the bye? How do you prepare with those 3 pretty different scenarios in terms of travel way up north, a short trip, or having 2 weeks off?
It's a real boring question or answer, but I honestly haven't thought about it. We're just going to try to win our games just like we usually do, and I guess on Sunday, if something changes after Friday, then we'll start making travel arrangements depending on. If not, then it's maybe we have to wait till Sunday. That's the only real thing, is that my assistant, Mike Hengen's going to have to decide where he's sending the bus and where we're getting our hotel. Other than that, I just care about winning these games. I hear coaches talk, I don't care right now if we're going to win or lose. I don't buy that. I mean, no matter if we take guys out of the lineup, I still want to win that game. So the way we've been playing lately, to be the truth of the matter is, yeah, I'd love to finish first, but I don't know if I want the bye. So if I could get first place and still not have to get the bye, maybe that would be the best of both worlds, because then I can say that we are the best team in the regular season. But I think we need a little more repetition to get kind of pushed through this little lull that we've had in the last little bit. And I don't know if 12 days off is really something we need.
And that's funny, because I think 2 weeks ago you would have said absolutely we'll take the bye, but it is a bit of a lull, and you've won 4 in a row. Is that weird? Can you recall this in other phases in your coaching career?
Well, yeah. I mean, you go through these things all the time, and that's why I think it's more of a mental. I think it's a little bit of a mental fatigue more than physical, and so. Today is a good day to kind of get away from the rink. We had a little meeting and nothing too drastic, and I just think if we can play well this weekend, we'll be back on track and ready to go come Thursday.
Come Thursday is playoff game number 1. Should you be the 2 or the 3 seed? That's because Toby Keith is rocking the SOEC on Saturday night. These playoffs were slated to start Friday, Saturday. You move that forward. How does that process happen, and do you need approval from the league, or who do you talk to?
Well, the league gives you a box that they say you have to get your 7 games, and if you go outside that box, then you have to get approval from the other team and the league. And both Quesnel and Merritt have given us the approval to go Thursday, Friday, then 2 days off, and then you get back on the regular track with a Monday, Tuesday in the opposition's building. Do
you prefer that big trip up to Quesnel to play Quesnel, or the shorter trip to Merritt, where we've seen a lot of close games?
You know what? It's funny. I usually recall the scores, but I think we actually blew them out 1 or 2 games in that building this year, with the exception of the first one. But you know what? Once again, I mean, if we want to win a championship, which we do, if it's going to be predicated if we go to Merritt or Quesnel, then I think that we got bigger issues.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll take a break. Return. Lots of good questions coming up tonight. Some emailed in, as well as some questions from the audience. This is Coach's Corner, brought to you by Underwriters Insurance. Back in a moment.
Here's a look at the upcoming games for your Penticton Vees. Home or away, you can catch all the Vees games on Easy Rock AM 800 in Penticton or online at myeasyrock.com. Join us at 5:30 at the Best Damn Sports Bar for the next edition of Coach's Corner, presented by Underwriters Insurance.
Welcome back to Coach's Corner, segment 3. Tonight, we now go to our questions that have been emailed in, veesvoice@gmail.com. If you've got an inquiry for the coach. First one from Matt Miller, who writes us every week. He said, where would you gauge the team's intensity last night versus maybe last weekend?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think that was one of the things we addressed today in our meeting, is that I thought that our intensity level kind of dropped a little bit in the second period, or not a little bit, quite a bit in the second period, and I think that's where we got sloppy, and I don't think Westside could be very happy with themselves either, because I mean, we seemed to fall asleep pretty well in the second period, and they weren't able to. They scored 4 goals, but they weren't able to capitalize on the win, and it's definitely something that we need to pick up, and it's got to be better this weekend. I thought on the past weekend when we went on that road trip, our intensity level was fine. I mean, it was pretty good. I mean, we battled in there hard in 2 tough places to play, and we need to get back. I think the last 2 home games that we've had, not very good performances. Obviously, we got the win last night, but we need to make our home rink a tough place to play.
Second question from Derek. He says, I've been seeing Joel Rumpel playing the puck a whole lot more. Does that make you nervous? Are you comfortable with it? And how does a coach approach a goaltender who wants to play the puck a lot?
Well, it's funny because Joel never played the puck much until all of a sudden the World Junior Championship this year, and I think he watched the Byzantine kid a lot, and all of a sudden, I never saw, that he even had that in his bag of tricks, I guess, in practice. He just never was a goalie that moved the puck a lot, and I didn't think he did it very well. And then it was like overnight, he just started doing it in practice, did it into some games, and with the exception of the one little mishap in Langley there, he's been pretty solid, and our D really like it. He helps us move the puck to the right areas. He's been good. When our penalty kill's been good, he's been a big part of that, moving it to the soft areas. And so, you know what, I don't talk to my goalies very often, as we all know, so if I am, it's usually not a good thing, so I'm not going to talk to him about his puck playing ability.
That probably means it's a good thing. We've got a question submitted by David Feather, who's here every week for Coach's Corner. It's a good one. It's got a little background, so stay seated. Here we go. With almost a whole season with these new fighting rules in place, and with several teams having their big tough guys with 5 fights for a while, do you think that some teams are employing some cheap shot tactics, obviously trying to take out these fighters who can't respond with fighting? And do you think next season we'll see some teams stacked up with more fighters to get around the rules and ultimately affect the standard of BCHL hockey? Would having an extra couple tough guys take the place of more talented players? You can see how this one rule, he's saying, how's it going to change the landscape of the league?
It's a great question, because I think we've made a mess with this new rule, and the league can get upset with me for making this public comment, but it is what it is. I think there's nothing wrong with having this supplement system where you have X amount of fights, but 5 fights is outrageous. It's ridiculous. Our league's never been a problem with fighting, I don't think, in the last 10 years. If you went up to 10 fights or something, that's one thing, but now you got guys dancing around on the ice, talking all night long, because they know they're protected, because certain guys can't fight anymore. There's other guys that have been, you hear it all the time, oh, I've got my 5 fights already, and then you look at the sheet and they don't. I mean, it's to me, I think it's really cheapening our game. I think you would have never seen that hit at the end of that game last night. I think it's taking entertainment value out of the game that tries to make us look more like a minor hockey type product, and I truly believe that. And if I get in trouble for saying that's too bad, because that's how I feel. I think a lot of other teams feel the same way. And I came from college hockey where there was no fighting, and I'll tell you, some of the worst stick work I ever saw was in college hockey. And now the headshots, they want to talk about headshots and everything else. Well, you know what? I think it's all wrapped together, and I don't care what numbers they want to throw at me. I think it's changed our game a lot. And I think there's a lot of fans that would agree with me. No question. I can think of a few instances just off the top of my head that it's affected the way the game's been played. Logan at 5 fights, watching Troy Stetcher getting cross-checked against Westside around Christmas time. The 2 hits in Victoria had nothing to do with fighting, except that if those guys knew they had to fight after the hit, maybe they don't happen. Well, I'll take it a step further. I don't think the second hit would have happened if there would have been a little accountability for the first hit. And there was no way that team was made accountable for that first dirty hit, and that's why the second one took place. So if this is done under the guise of player safety, I think probably a logical response would say this isn't safe at all to have guys throwing dangerous hits because fighting's been taken away. Yeah, and like I said, I don't have a problem with putting a set amount of fight, because you don't want it to get into the old, like, I like that the rules where at the end of games you can't have a bunch of fight. I mean, when I first coached in junior hockey, the last 5 minutes of the game took forever to play, and that wasn't good for the game either. There was a lot of people that were turned off by it, and you saw the stuff that was said in the National Hockey League this past week with Mario Lemieux and so forth. You don't want, that's not what we're looking for. But 5 fights, you play 60 games. You could be done with those in the free. If somebody's starting to get over the 10 fights, then yeah, maybe they're in the wrong league. Maybe this is not where they need to be. But 1 fight every 6 games or so, it's not the end of the world. Think about the run that Vernon went on the last 2 years, how many games they've played. It wasn't just 60, because they went through the BCHL, into the Doyle Cup, and to the National Championship. So, theoretically, 90, it could be 90 games. Yeah, and to be held to 5 fights before being suspended, I don't know. Banquet's coming up on Sunday. This is a tough decision-making time, I'm sure, in terms of how you pick the awards. I'm just going to throw 2 awards out there to just garner some discussion of how tough it would be deciphering one player to win, and maybe how that process works. First off, top D-man.
You got a guy like Joey Lalezia, who's going to run away with the scoring title for defenseman, might finish in the top 4 in league scoring. You got a guy like Derek Johnson, who blocks shots and is superb in his own end. Never seems to be any activity around the net when he's on the ice. And then Bezo, again, a well-rounded, more defensive-minded defenseman. How would you compare and contrast and come up with one to win?
Well, it's tough, and I think, not to give it away, but I think a lot of times you put a lot of different factors in there, and you know what they do on the ice, off the ice. I mean, how much time they've been with the program. I mean, the one thing with our program, we do give out a lot of awards at the end of the year, and it's nice to be able to recognize as many players as possible and try to spread them around. And for me, when you talk about that award in particular, yeah, you can go many different ways with it, and I think the 3 guys that you mentioned all would be deserving, and the one thing I can tell you is all 3 of those guys have sure done a lot for our program.
Another one would be inspirational. You could look just at the way Milan and McMillan play the game and how that gets everyone else fired up. You can think of when Logan's hitting; it seems to be infectious. Again, the captain blocking shots. Inspirational is a tough award too.
Yeah, they're all tough, and we try to get a lot of different opinions, so it's not just it's not something that I just go and choose. And I think, like I said, I think in a lot of the categories you could probably name 2 or 3 guys, and it's a nice way for guys to be rewarded. But I think if you asked all our guys, there's one award they want to get, and it's a team award.
Yeah, no question. I think a trophy at the end of the year, right? Not on Sunday night, but the banquet does run Sunday, 5 p.m. drinks, 6 p.m. dinner, and at 7 o'clock the award's given away. Will Russell, our director of ticketing, will be selling banquet tickets on the concourse Friday and Saturday at the SOEC. Also, we'll put some information up on the screen in terms of where you can call to get those tickets for the banquet. Playoff tickets also you can purchase by round or for the complete buy-in for the entire possible, 16 home games for the postseason. And other notes, Feed the Valley, bags given out on Wednesday at the SOEC. Bring them back Friday night, full of non-perishable food items for the food bank. All thanks to Valley First. Feed the Valley. You can pick up those bags at any branch throughout town. Coach, thanks for your time this week. Much appreciated.
You bet. Thank you.
Next show coming up on Tuesday, the 22nd. It's a different time. We'll make sure our studio audience knows that, because Thursday is the debut of the playoffs should the Vees finish 2nd or 3rd. Thanks for joining us. This has been Coach's Corner, brought to you by Underwriters Insurance from the Best Damn Sports Bar.
Coach's Corner is a presentation of Ryan Pinder Media and the Penticton Vees Hockey Club.